This is a real example. The criteria won't make much sense to you. This is from an Eason distributor, Electrical Apparatus Service Association. These are the guys that rebuild 5,000 horsepower motors that grind coal in coal-fired plants. And they're all over the place. And here's what they basically said. Let's put some scenarios together. And they were basically looking at two things. I'll give you the brief explanation. But what you do is you say, what are the things that can hurt me as a business? And what are the factors of uncertainty? Because both of these factors, X and Y, had uncertainty. Is the market going to get bigger? Is the market going to get smaller? These guys repair motors. Anything up to a 15 horsepower motor today, standard NEMA frame motor, is a throwaway. Nobody messes with rebuilding it anymore. It's 100 horsepower, it gets rebuilt. So do we shift to replace? Because the power transmission distributors gain there. If we shift to repair, we do well. So if we get more repair in the mix and the market gets bigger, their scenario was named Forrest Gump. Everybody remember Forrest Gump? Go the other way. The industry shrinks and it shifts to replace. Anybody see the movie 300? It's not a chick flick. But the whole point is, and a lot of people give movie names to scenarios, and somebody owns it, and you figure it out. If you're an owner of a privately held company and somebody says, I want to buy you, you can say, we're not for sale, go away. If you're an executive in a public company and somebody says, we want to buy you, you have to talk to them. Now, everything I just said is stupid, right? Because we're talking about something that's not going to happen, probably. But there's all this uncertainty, and when there's uncertainty, it is to your advantage in terms of protecting your business enterprise to say, how are the various ways this can play out, and what are the things that I need to do to put my company in the best possible situation? Scenario planning, and by the way, you want to have some fun? I've had a lot of distributors that actually sit with their sales force and say, what happens if your biggest customer goes bankrupt? Then it won't happen. And what you do is you force it. Well, what? And all of a sudden, you know what the obvious answer is? Well, I guess maybe I better be developing some other guys. Well, isn't that what they're supposed to be doing anyway? Just saying. So when you start thinking about this, manufacturer consolidation is going to accelerate. Because of the pressures in the low growth environment, you're going to see more empty growth and people paying high prices and doing stupid stuff, and when they do stupid stuff, it's going to come home to roost, which forces them to do more stupid stuff to fix the problem they made in the first place because they paid too much. Right? Everybody's going to have all their little stories. So where do you take this? You know it's going to happen. What can you do for your business to put you in the best situation? And you put some scenarios together, and it's a bunch of one-pagers. Just suppose X, what are we going to do? Now here's the thing that happens. If your biggest supplier gets acquired, as soon as that happens, the phone starts ringing and you call all the other distributors. Well, what do you know? What do you hear? And we have all this. It's like junior high at a high school prom and everybody's talking back and forth. But here's what if you have the scenario, there's something different that happens. Because if you have a scenario, the very first thing before you call everybody else, you say, we did a scenario on this. Go find that envelope. Somebody find that envelope and let's get it open. What are we going to do? And you're in a whole lot better position to do something than sit here and talk about it and be with the herd wandering around aimlessly. Here's the punchline. And it's another old line from the military. You don't have to like it, you just have to do it. And this went viral. This is the CEO of Nokia. And when they announced they were being acquired by Microsoft, they were sitting in a big dais with he and all of his senior vice presidents. And when he said this, he ended the speech by saying, we didn't do anything wrong, but somehow we lost. And he started bawling like a baby, and so did the other vice presidents. The market changed. Remember, Nokia used to have the dominant market share, and then along came something called the smartphone, and they couldn't keep up. You're in an industry that is strong, that is foundational. Kathy Mazzarella was at least partially right And because Kathy's a very smart person, and when you talk to her, I'm sure there's a whole story that goes to the line she gave Dirk. But the distribution as we know it today doesn't exist anymore. There will be huge opportunities in different business models, and doing scenarios is the way that you stay ahead of it instead of just buffeted by all this change. There's one punchline I want to give you, and I'll set you free. This is part of what we teach at Purdue, and it's about managing in turbulent times. The biggest risk that any of you have is concentration risk. And this is a very disguised risk chart, and you as a company need to have this. You come up with what are the categories of risk. This is our product category. We're too much in lighting. A customer, we got one customer, it's too big. We got a customer group, we're doing too much in contractors, we need to get more into utilities. I got a single vendor. You know, Siemens is way too big in terms of what I'm doing. You get to pick these numbers, and then you plug in the actual. And you're going to have a number at corporate, but you're also going to have one at branches. I'll tell you one more story, true story. And I will not name the distributor because a number of you would know it, but it's somebody that was an NAD member. They've since been acquired. They had, I don't know, probably a dozen locations. They had one location in a nice market. This one contractor represented 52% of their total revenue in that location. Contractor. And you guys, those of you in the construction business know, when you get aligned with somebody that's that big in a market, the other contractors won't buy from you, right? Everybody's, you know, all this stuff gets all mapped out. So they just had renewed a triple net lease, 10-year lease on the office building. 48 hours later, this guy filed bankruptcy. Stuck him with a big number. So they can't go bankrupt. They're stuck with the lease. They just lost 52% of their revenue. This is what we would call a religious experience. And I want to make a point. They had talked about, we need to do something about this, and every year they talked about it, and nobody ever did anything about it. And remember the black swan thing I talked about? If you wait long enough, everything's going to happen once. And it came home to roost. And it took them 2 years to get back to get the problem fixed, and it was a lot of arterial bleeding. Lost a lot of shareholder value because of it. You take a look, because having your major supplier change out is a big risk. It's huge. And there's uncertainty. It definitely warrants a scenario. You can sit here and you can decide by branch what the maximum is and then plug in the actuals from where, I mean, put a chart like this together for you. And for some of you, this is grab the bull by the tail and face the problem. If I was on your board, and we start with this thing, we look at this as an investor. If I had money in your company and I was on the board and you had a concentration risk, either I'd get off the board or we'd have a big fight, because you need to deal with this in terms of protecting shareholder value instead of kicking the can down the road like our government does. All right? How well is Obamacare working for everybody? So think about your concentration risk and deal with it. Some problems with kids, right? My daughter went off to West Point. She had purple hair, had a giant eyebrow ring. She couldn't get through an airport metal detector. Why are you doing that? Well, I know they won't let me wear it in the Army. All those things pass, right? Some problems you can ignore and they will go away. Concentration risk is a problem that only gets bigger unless you do something decisively. So, last slide. I like to read. Learn a lot of stuff when you read. These are all books that I think have major impact on if you want to ride this industry out and end up on top of the wave, and where all this turmoil is playing to you, every book up here is going to be very helpful. I would recommend these two first. Read this one first. This is how you stop being hostage to your own history. And this book will change your life. If I was a young person looking for a bright future, this would be one of the industries that I would go into, and this book will explain why, and it also explains why Kathy Mazzarella was right, and that distribution as we know it, 10 years, it won't even be here. But there'll still be distributors. They'll still be doing a lot of other things because we're all migrating to services instead of product. How many of you guys give away supply chain services, engineering services, and all kinds of other things, and you give it away for free and make it up on gross margin? And the endless aisle of Amazon, is going to unbundle and take all that product margin away. There's a huge service opportunity, and a lot of people are embracing it. I don't want commissions. We do gross margin. What's the return on asset on a commission? It's infinite. Think about the money.